We now know what AMD is planning on doing for their next generation CPUs, and it's leaving gamers not so happy. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast. And in case you want to join us for meme review, we're currently doing that over on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/UFDisciple, as this video goes live at 9 a.m. So it would mean a lot if you would come join us. Everybody can participate in meme review by submitting their memes to our subreddit, and the best meme of the day wins one of our brand new merch, which I'm wearing one of them. Kyler thinks it says the word out.
Start out.
Start out. What does that mean?
Just starting out.
Go away. Just leave. So it'd be great to have you for that. And it's also great to learn that we now have at least multiple confirmations behind the scenes of what AMD is planning on doing for their next generation AM5 CPUs, also known as Zen 4, also known as Ryzen 7000. And that is, we're getting two different chipsets. As it currently stands, we have three for the current AMD setup: A520, B550, and X570. It looks like for AM5, we're going to have B650 as well as X670. However, one of the key confirmations that's coming out on this is not that we're getting two different chipset motherboards, one which is going to be more mid-tier, one that's going to be for the high-end stuff, but rather both of these are only going to have support for DDR5. This is unlike Intel's current Alder Lake setup, where you can find even the highest-end motherboards like Z690 with DDR4 varieties. It does look like AMD is going to be completely making the switch to DDR5, which is something Intel's also planning on doing for their Raptor Lake setups that are supposed to come out later this year. Z790 from Intel should only support DDR5. And there was also some talk that if you were going to put a Raptor Lake on a Z690 motherboard, it might only be on the ones that support DDR5, just because of the way the integrated memory controller works. It's going to be complicated and a messy transition as we're moving forward. It looks like Intel had that transition generation with DDR4 and DDR5 motherboards, but AMD will not have that. It will be a clean break, and if you want DDR4, you need to stick on Ryzen 5000 or below. And obviously the biggest complaint when it comes to DDR5 is not the fact that it's not faster or it's not actually better for the system overall, but rather it comes down to the price. If you look for a 32 gig kit of DDR5 4800 megahertz, it's currently costing $275 over on Amazon, whereas a DDR4 3600 megahertz kit, which is not as fast, but actually the same capacity, only cost you $140. So roughly half the price. DDR5 still very expensive, even though the debut happened several months ago. But also one of the key considerations that we don't have with regards to Zen 4 and the next generation launch is how much is AMD's next generation of chips going to be dependent on memory frequency. This is something that we're actually finding out about the 5800X3D that AMD released exactly a week ago. With the enhancement of 3D V-cache, the memory scaling is actually not as good. It doesn't depend on that as much to get all of the performance out of it. So if Ryzen 7000 depends on that more than the current generation of chips, we might not actually need higher, faster RAM, and you could actually afford to go with the cheaper stuff as opposed to the current suggestion when it comes to building an AMD system, which is go for as fast as you possibly can up until 3700 megahertz. It's going to be a change of pace when it comes to AMD's next generation. I think we're going to have to reconsider a whole lot about how we recommend AMD, how we choose to build it out, especially because it's going to have different feature sets like DDR5, like different memory scaling, 3D V-cache, as well as the fact that it's going to be based on an LGA socket instead of a PGA socket, which means that the pins are going to be on the motherboard instead of the CPU. So different all around. And there's also some indication that the chipsets themselves are going to be different. It looks like the X670 might actually be built out of chiplets, very much like the CPUs are built out of chiplets, and as previous rumors have shown us, the GPUs will be built out of chiplets. AMD is just going to be a chiplet company all around. The X670 essentially is going to be a dual chiplet design, two B650s fused together to give you all of the throughput that you would want on the motherboard. According to the latest report, a single chip could handle 8 lanes of PCI Express 4.0 connectivity through the motherboard, which 4 of those would be for PCI Express 4.0 storage, and then the X670 would double that up until 16 lanes because of all this. However, one of the weird considerations is the fact that most earlier reports have indicated that AMD will support PCI Express 5.0 on the next generation, whereas this seems to indicate that it might be only PCI PCI Express 4.0, so it's hard to say where it's gonna land, but it does look like AMD is shifting their strategies all around. But while we're talking about how different AMD is doing things, we do obviously have a really good example in the 5800X3D to see where AMD's vision for the future lies. This 5800X3D chip essentially being a beta test for what's going to be hopefully a mainstream option that AMD will roll out in their next generation chips. But as there's been more testing on it, it does appear like it actually doesn't perform as well over on Linux. Phoronix actually tested out a 5800X3D when it came to gaming, and it actually did not do as well as it does on Windows, which obviously can be changed with different updates that come to Linux or that come through drivers from AMD or different firmware or BIOS updates. Obviously, this could potentially be patched out, but on average, the 5800X3D only beat out the 5800X by roughly 5% in 15 different games that were tested. The testing on Windows showed that it was about 25 to 30% faster than the 5800X in gaming. On the other side of the coin, in Linux, when it comes to just regular productivity, the 5800X3D actually performed fairly well when it came to tasks that were optimized to take advantage of the extra cache, up to 118% in some instances. So it does look like we're getting the growing pains out now when it comes to 3D V-cache. It does look like there's a lot of preparation happening for the next generation of AMD chips. Intel is kind of beta testing the DDR5 and PCI Express 5.0 stuff. AMD's beta testing the 3D V-cache, and then that's all going to be fused together to create what's going to be a probably large release when it comes to Ryzen 7000. And obviously, we still have Intel's Raptor Lake upcoming, which is expected to be super competitive and potentially run at up to 6 gigahertz, which will provide Intel with a decent competitive edge. It's hard to say how well AMD Zen 4 is going to perform. We obviously see that once Intel got a new architecture out in Alder Lake, it's actually outpacing AMD in a lot of different instances, especially with it being a brand new architecture, not being refined like Zen has over the past few years. We could potentially see that refining come through with Raptor Lake and just make it so that we actually have really good top tier competitive CPUs. No more of this leapfrogging. One of them is the clear leader, the other one's the clear leader, but actually they're going toe to toe in essentially everything, and it's going to come down to how they're going to incentivize gamers to choose their platform over the other in order for people to make the decisions. But let me know what your favorite feature that you're expecting out of AMD's next Ryzen 7000 chips is down below in the comments. I want to hear from you there. And don't forget that we're currently streaming as this episode goes live over on Twitch. Come join us, twitch.tv/UFDisciple. We'd love to have you there. It's going to be a grand old time as we review your memes. Catlin, show them a clip of something they missed from last week so they know that they should show up.
Carl, why do tech pirates hate smooth winds? Please no, because they love coarse air. Coarse air, Carl. Coarse air.
No!
With that being said, I'm Brett. I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.